Morning, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks you.
I'm all right. I've had man flu and hay fever together,
But
but
you're
you're lucky
struggling
I'm here.
through.
You're lucky I'm here. It was touch and go. It really was. But
Oh,
anyway,
it's a deadly combination.
uh, they're bad enough on their own. Trust me. So what? So I think topic of today is something that we've spoke about before, and it's something that I come across all the time. I think that the data world has an absolutely stinking PR problem.
I would agree with you on that, and I think there's multiple angles. And I mentioned just before, I've got an example from yesterday actually.
Go.
So over the weekend, or actually on Friday, one of the business clubs I'm a part of, the Facebook group, I posted on there just asking for some help, just around the marketing message and how I'm selling it, because I'd basically put the minute you start talking about data, people switch off or it's quite boring and don't exactly roll their eyes. Uh, and then
Or they say we haven't got any data. What are
we
you talking
haven't got
about?
any data. I don't data the techie thing. Uh, and then late last night, one of my mates texted me. He'd obviously seen a video I'd done on LinkedIn recently, a bit of a software demo, and his message was basically, I just started watching your video, but 4 seconds in, you mentioned the word data, so I stopped.
No, no.
Brilliant. So I actually screen grabbed the Facebook group and went, that's exactly what I've just posted in that group to say there's an issue with how it's done. And it made me laugh more because he's a teacher. So he's probably using data more than anyone else watching those videos and anything. But it is that thing of the minute you start saying data or talking about data, for me, it's just seen as this big technical thing, and we've I think the industry itself has done itself no favors when we start talking about data lakes and data swamps and data puddles and all the different tools that you
Medallion and architecture and
yeah
data mesh.
yeah. And it's just become very, very confusing for people if you're not in the techie world. And to be honest, I have to re-Google half of the phrases because there's a new one every week on something I've not heard of. It can be very, very complicated. And even a lot of the business intelligence tools, you almost have to have a degree to learn how to use some of them as well to actually get the answers you want from them. They're not just straightforward, put your information in and it tells you stuff. Uh, some of the early ones, you actually have to configure your data in the first place before you can load it in, before you can then work out kind of what sums you want it to do or what information you want it to give you. And it can be difficult.
It can be, and I think so. Why? I guess the question is, what? Why has it been so? Why has it come across so complicated? And I think, is there a tendency to maybe sometimes just in my experience, I think sometimes data teams have a tendency to hide away. Um, Technically incredibly proficient, incredibly talented, ability to set up platforms, pipelines, and everything in really, really, really good stuff. But at what point do you go, okay, well, what are we trying to achieve? We have a data, a mass of data. Every business has piles and piles of data coming in and created. Setting up a platform, setting up some dashboarding on top of that, great. Okay, you can do that, and many data teams are incredibly proficient at doing that, and very, very good. But at what point do you go, okay, well, what are the requirements? Well, what are we aiming for here? And I often think that sometimes that part doesn't necessarily get missed, but it gets sometimes downplayed. And like, well, we've got loads of information. Let's see what we can derive. Well, no, you're looking at it the wrong way around. You're letting tech drive the requirement, which is when there's so many tech options out there, it almost is the last consideration. You need to really be clear on what you're trying to achieve, what your metrics that you're trying to understand, and what your purpose is for looking at this. Because otherwise, you end up with a project that in 6 to 12 months down the line is redundant because it's been served its purpose, because the purpose was short and sweet, and it's not continued to evolve through that process. And it's something that, you can call it's a product rather than a project. So it has to continue to evolve. Again, is that, are we in danger of being in jargon territory again and creating a name for something when essentially you just have to keep asking questions and you have to keep evolving any platform and process and engage your teams and stakeholders throughout, beginning to end, and continually do that. And then you have a more sustainable long-term data world, should we say?
Yeah, and I think the parallels between kind of even the data world and what you see in IT and tech anyway are quite similar in that they quite often hide away. And I always joke about them being kind of the TV program, the IT crowd, where they're in the basement, hidden away. You phone them when there's a problem. You're not seeing them as the team who are coming to aid you in what you're trying to achieve. And a lot of that historically has just been that they're almost like the fault finding team, or they have worked in silo and produced stuff that hasn't done it. And where I'm now working with other organizations, we're very clear that it's kind of like, what's the ambition? Where do you want to get to? What are the list of problems that are stopping you getting there? And therefore, what actions are we taking that are going to effectively remove those problems? Mm-hmm. And everything we do is worded problem, action, ambition. And we go through them all. So there's no projects where we don't know what kind of the outcome is that we need to be. And therefore, the conversations you're having with that department are very, very different, because it's now we're here to solve problems. We're here to remove headaches from you. And I think a lot of that has been just around communication, that although they're the digital team, we don't really talk tech, we don't talk digital, we talk problems and actions. And if you can go to someone and say, effectively, right, what part of your job really annoys you, or what pisses you off the most, what do you struggle with every day, why can't you go home at 5 o'clock, what kind of keeps you up at night, or even just what jobs do you do that things take you forever, you soon get that list, and then you go, okay, we'll start knocking them off. And then you are seen as a problem-solving team, not a digital or a tech team. And it's a huge difference in not just mindset of digital and IT and how they talk to people, but also the departments and how they interact with them as well. And I think data's in that same kind of place where it's always been seen as quite a techie thing. And if you look at some data projects, I mean, you'll know as much as I do, some of them run into the millions and tens of millions of pounds to try and get all this stuff done. And a lot of organizations then, as you said, set up this separate data team. So again, you're seen as like a data specialist team, and therefore almost trying to justify your own world by trying to find things out rather than sitting down and saying to the department, right, what do you actually need? What helps you? And I've worked in places and still work in places where they're looking at dashboards, because dashboards are the cool thing to talk about. And you're kind of like going, okay, that's great. You can have a dashboard. We can put all the information on that dashboard that you need. But what's actually going to change in how you work or operate? Because if nothing changes, and if the governance is still too high that you're not allowed to make snap decisions, it has to go through a process behind you, then kind of having let's call it real time, they're never quite real time, but as real time as you'll get it, kind of dashboards saying we've got a problem, unless you're authorized to go, I'll make a decision and change what we're doing based on what I'm seeing, then you don't really need that dashboard. You can wait till next week to find out the information, because you probably had to go to 3 meetings and send 10 emails and write a paper and do anything else before you're allowed to make that change.
So, yeah, and I think that a lot of the people, the teams and the stakeholders who really know how a business operates and really knows what the challenges are and where they are the people, the coalface, for want of a better phrase, but they're often not the sponsors of the projects. So, and again, another big thing, and it all comes back to communication again, is don't prescribe a project. down throughout an organization without first knowing what that organization really needs by way of outcome. And I guess another thing that I see in question quite a lot is how many on the in the management team, how regularly are data teams represented? I'm not saying that would solve the issue, but it's another piece of the jigsaw that stops a data team being so isolated in these occasions.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And it's funny enough, in local government, where my background generally is there's quite a lot of people who've got the job title CIO, and not one of them sits at the top table. There might be a couple of exceptions, but in general, it's become a job title of the most senior role in IT. It hasn't become a C-level role where you are actually involved in those conversations. Nearly all of them report into a director of finance or director of resources, something, before they get to that top table. And it's funny, isn't it? Because it is just how you chat and converse with people and talk about what you're doing to kind of alleviate the I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but the way that data is seen as this technical thing that's difficult, someone else should be doing it. But I always liken it, and you'll know this one, that everyone drives a car pretty much. They all drive to work or they drive around at the weekends, they go to the shops. You've got a dashboard sitting in front of you. It's the same word, it's the same term that we use, but you don't look at a car dashboard and think, oh, I'm looking at data. But you are, because you're looking at how fast you're going, how much fuel you've got, whether the engine's up to temperature, what gear you're in. There's all sorts of information being shown back at you. And as part of you driving, you're reacting to that immediately. So you're going, okay, well, my speed is this. I need to slow down, speed up, or I need to...
More often than not.
More often than not, I need to speed up and go quicker.
Whoa! Okay, slow down. Whoa.
Yeah, so you're quite adept at actually taking in lots of information and making a decision based on that when you're doing something quite comfortable as a car. But no one ever sits and says to you, oh, what data do you want to know while you're driving? Because they probably wouldn't actually understand the question that they're being asked of. If you kind of said, well, what do you want on the dashboard to tell you about your car? Everyone go, well, the main thing is what speed am I going, because I don't want a speeding ticket.
Facebook page, Twitter profile.
Yeah. And if you're in a Tesla, you want a 24-inch screen next to you that you can do everything on, unrelated to driving.
Play Minecraft on it while you're in traffic.
Yeah.
But it's true as well. It's very true, because you don't drive a car. Also, on this thread, is that you don't drive a car looking in the rearview mirror either. So you don't drive forwards by looking backwards, and it's the same. It's the integration and communication of data into a business. Is that it's not just used at the end of every period, going, right, how did we do this week? Oh, we did rubbish. Why didn't we do better? Or hey, we did great. What went well? This information is already available for you to, if you make it available, for you to review throughout that period. So okay, well, what's happening and what does that mean moving forward? Is that you can then, as you're driving a car, you could look behind and you could look at the information coming to you, but to move forward. Your ultimate aim is to move forward and make a decision at the next junction, the next roundabout. That decision needs to make because of what's going on around you, and that information is coming in. And it's the same with business operations and with so many platforms and applications being bolted in all the time. You have to use that in the same way to be able to continue to move forwards. You don't get to the end of a journey and go, well, how was that? How did we do? Did we choose did we go the right way? You probably that as you're going through your journey. Oh no, shit, I turned left, I should have gone right. Or I got off at the wrong junction, now I have to go all the way around the roundabout again. It's that, you are reacting in real time based upon information provided by your decisions to continue to get to the destination you're trying to get to.
Yeah. Or in most organisations, Richard, you get an Excel spreadsheet sent to you on Monday morning telling you how your drive went and what speed you did and how you got on. And again, very kind of reactive and after the point. of doing it. And
or a printed off PDF that you get given when you get to your bin. You just go, great, and click it in the bin.
But you just never accept someone saying to you, get in the car, there's no dashboard, there's no information, we'll send it to you next week.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even start the engine. I'm going to cough, excuse me.
Maybe you've got man flu and hay fever as well.
A man flew up through the
no. Oh no. New type of virus.
You just wouldn't accept that, would you? And
no.
It's kind of you just expect. But again, we've dropped the word data and just said you just get in and look at the information. It tells you stuff, you carry on. And you almost have to be that flippant in a way, don't you? When you're talking to organisations, it's you want to get from A to B, same as a car does, or same as you're doing your journey. What's going to stop you? Roundabout speed limits, other motorists, other businesses, competitors, bumps in the road. You want to be able to see those, react to them in the time that you need to react to them. Otherwise, you're going through a pothole and you're going to be spending 400 quid on a new set of tyres. But it's the exact same thing. But yet in business and in local government, in public sector, it's almost readily accepted that we're not going to have that information at the time. And even when we do get it, we're almost going to spend a month thinking about it before we then do anything drastic, by which point you're on a different road and something else happened.
Well, this is it. And it's something I kind of approach it like, understand where you are now, understand what your requirements are, where you're trying to get to, and then plot a path along the way. But it's also very important to remain flexible and agile through that process, because as you say, what you don't want to do is get to the end of that project and the world shifted, the goalposts have moved, any other cliche you want to use, but your business requirements have changed through that period. They change daily, weekly, monthly. If you go away for 6 months and go, ta-da, here's a dashboard that we decided on 6 months ago, it's been through process and iteration, we've tweaked it slightly, okay, that's great, but you throughout that time, your business is not where it was 6 months ago. And so you have to keep that kind of mentality of flexibility and agility as you walk through these any particular project, because things change. They change all the time, and it's the same as you say, likening it again to a driving journey. You go, I'm going on. For me, I'm going from the M1 to M1 M6 to Birmingham, and I'm not even considering any other option. And you get on the M1 and it's shut, or you get on the M1 and it's closed, or it's really badly delayed. And you have an option to get off, but you don't take it. So you just sit there for 7 hours. And you're like, well, would you realistically do that? Unless you were ridiculously belligerent and just refused to change your mind. I'm not getting off for nobody. But it's like, well, you wouldn't. And it's the same with decisions, with business decisions, with anything, is that, yes, you make a decision, and yes, you kind of keep an eye on it and you stick to it if that's the one thing you want to do. But you need to continually ingest and absorb information as you're going through, because there's no point going all the way to the end and then going, shit, it didn't work. Yeah, and it's like you can change that path. You might be a slight pivot that's needed, a little bit of a tweak, a little bit of a change on that decision that makes it a slightly different end point, but means you get there and you have the success that you want.
Yeah. And without knowing it, you've just described Waze and many other traffic apps, in that although you've said, I want to get from here to Birmingham, and it will say, this is your fastest route, halfway through that route, it might pop up and go, actually, you're better off coming here. You're still going to get to your end destination that you want to get to, but actually we've noticed that if you carry on this road, you're going to be 15 minutes longer than if we take a minor detour. Now, I mean, sometimes it's annoying. It gives you something that's like a minute quicker based on you doing the full speed limit on that road.
It sends you down one-way streets the wrong way, which is done to me 30 in Birmingham before.
But it is that thing of we still want to get you to the same place, but you have to be able to almost in an instant go, yes, I'm coming off at this junction, which I wasn't planning on, and I'm moving forward. And again, lots of people use phones, lots of people use Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps, whatever maps they're using, and going, oh, I just follow this. But no one's going to them and going, oh, what's your data plan for getting to Birmingham?
Mm.
You're just, the language changes, and you're talking about kind of what route you're going to take, almost like what, again, my ambition is to get to Birmingham by this time. What problems are there? Well, traffic, road closures, roadworks, issues, weather, all sorts. What actions can we take? Well, we'll use Waze, and it will update every couple of minutes, telling me which way is the best route to take and whether to stay on the road or not. So everything you're doing is kind of in that model anyway. It's almost, we used to laugh when I worked at Peterborough. It's almost like when you walk through the front door of the council, your brain got zapped, as if to say everything you do in your private life and outside of work is now gone.
Isn't that a show, wasn't it, on Apple called Severance, where they had their mind wiped when they walked in the door, so they went out their 2 lives.
Yeah,
sorry, it's the same. Yeah, there was sort of
I'm going to watch that. I've not seen that.
It's really good, actually. Yeah,
but we used to joke about that almost the minute you walk into business, your brain does get zapped, and everything that you do in your private life around how you use data, whether it's shopping, Tesco Club Card, your apps, your driving, any of this, you get in and you sit in a business environment, and it's almost like, well, Excel's good enough, or last week's data's good enough, or a month ago. And I think we've spoken before, I've talked about the Premier League.
Mm.
You're going to be watching that on, is it Sunday, the last day of the league? Saturday or Sunday, final day. Every time a goal goes in, that table changes as to who's going to win the title and who's not, and probably not in the relegation. I think that's a done deal, but it's changing constantly, and the table is updated as you're watching those games. So the minute all of those games finish, you know exactly who's won the title, who's second, who's made it into Europe, who hasn't. You wouldn't watch all of that and then go, oh, I'll wait till Tuesday for someone to send me an Excel spreadsheet of the Premier League table. But again, in your brain, you're not looking at the Premier League table and going, that's data. Mm-hmm. That's structured data in a nice format that tells me what's happening. That's just the Premier League table. And I think a lot of the conversation, by having specialist data teams or having what we call business analysts, kind of business improvement or business intelligence teams, I think in a way you're almost putting a title on them that puts them in a difficult position to go back and talk to the organization, because they're seen like we are as the techies or the nerds or the data guys or the data dicks.
Data dicks, yeah.
Two data dicks, if you want to call it that.
I get called it all the time.
I do a lot more than I'd like it. But it's that thing of you've automatically categorized them as that. And I suppose in a way, if you said to someone, would you like your Premier League table presented as a web page shown to you, or would you like the Premier League data? Most people would say, I'll take the web page, please, even though it's exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just how we talk and how we communicate. And the other thing that I think we are particularly bad at in the industry is using artistic license to explain some of the concepts. It's almost like you want to get it technically correct, but that means we've confused the person we're talking to. Whereas you and I have just had a conversation about cars and Waze and Premier League tables and all of that stuff. Technically, yes, there's loads of stuff happening behind the scenes that is making that work, but you don't need to know any of that. You just need to know that within 5 seconds, the Premier League table is updated. You know exactly what it looks like, or within a fraction of a second, your car dashboard is updated. Yeah. You know exactly what your car's doing. We're not talking about the data tables that sit behind that or how it works. It's purely how you're getting on your journey, and therefore my role as your dashboard is how am I helping you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I've been in countless meetings with management teams and where there's been a massive management pack printed off that's probably 20 or 30 pages thick that's also been emailed. And you sit in this room and the key decision maker comes in and goes, or decision makers come in and go, look, picks the pack up, leafs through it and goes, what do I need to know? Just tell me what I need to know. And there might be an explanation about, oh, we've pulled this information in, we've done this modeling, we've done that allocation of resources. They don't care. They don't care. If they don't care about a 30-page management pack, they're not going to care about how clever the system is behind the scenes. And some of it will be incredible. There's no knocking of the capabilities of the structure of the skill set that's involved in some of this. It's the communication. The key stakeholder, they really just do not care. Most of the time. I mean, you might get one that's reasonably interested, that takes an interest in it, but the default setting in communicating should not be, I am going to explain to you how technically proficient this system is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even I was just thinking about a project I'm working on currently, the title is using data to identify something. And you're then putting yourself in this odd position where data is at the forefront, but actually we've created a system that just identifies stuff. So the actual thing is almost like create more income through using this tool. Not the data is important, of course it is. There's a huge element of the project that is data, but to the end user, they just want to know the tool we're giving them is going to help them identify this issue and bring more income into them. And so lots of words communications drop data completely from it and just try and reword everything into kind of that business outcome perspective. Because I found that as we've gone through this particular project, where we've started talking to the business and explaining to the business, it's slowly been filtered down to where we're now talking to the data teams. And we're talking about how the tooling and the system helps them with their data project, the beneficiaries of which are going to be all of the departments in the council. But kind of I wouldn't say they weren't quite grasping it, but it wasn't kind of as keen a grasp as you would want where you're coming from a data project, because it was just explained to them that we're pulling lots and lots of data together from lots of various sources. This is how it works. This is kind of then how the audit trail is put onto all that information, and this is then how it's presented. And it's very different for them because the actual presentation of the data is just through a dashboard built by a system. So it could be Power BI, it could be Tableau, it could be Click, it could be an Excel spreadsheet, it could be absolutely anything. Whereas most people are kind of used to a system where you log into it and the system then tells you something. And we're working in a completely different way with this one. And it's taken longer than you would expect, but it's a very different concept to what everyone has probably done before. And I think we've probably hindered ourselves slightly on it by having the title of it be using data to identify X, whereas actually we just want the outcome is this is what happens once we've done all this other work. And people can get their heads around that. That's a much easier conversation.
Yeah, it's just a different framing of this. It is literally that simple. It's that I've been through lots of, if I'm trying to create a post or some content or something, you write it down and you go, what the hell? I mean, I understand it, but how many times have I used the word data? So if you're then communicating that out in that method to a stakeholder, you have to flip it on its head almost and say, look, just cut all the jargon, cut that all out, and focus on, as you say, what is the outcome here? What is the problem you're looking to solve? What is the desired outcome? What will this deliver? And just keep it at that. Don't over-explain what else is happening. Yeah. This is what we will deliver. This is what it will give you by this point in time. And there you go.
Well, going all the way back to my Facebook post where I was asking for some help on mine, I was essentially saying exactly that, in that there's not a single person in the world who's Googling, how do I use my qualitative data better? It just doesn't happen. I will never come up on a search because no one has ever searched.
Use it as SEO.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously what I'm trying to get to is, how does your business grow and how do you improve your business? We do that by structuring your qualitative data, but I don't ever really want to talk to you about the word qualitative or the word data or anything else. It's conversations, it's decisions, it's discovery work that you've done. We capture all of that. and trying to market that. And it came to a fore because I got the system onto Gartner, onto Captera, and they put certain categories against it. And the first category was qualitative business intelligence or something. And then it shows you how many people click on it and what the price is. And it's like one person a month clicks on this. And you're just like, right, that's not the category I want to be in then, is it? But the actual categories I want to be in don't really exist as a thing. So it is how you word that. And it reminds me a lot of, again, in Peterborough many years ago, we built a 100-kilometre fibre network. I say we, obviously I had to give all the credit to lots of other people more senior than me, but I'm claiming it as my project. I did it.
Literally, yeah.
I didn't dig it, someone else dug it.
No, you did dig it, yeah, you laid it, yeah. Edit that out.
when we're explaining that to council trying to get the funding and have it all approved, it was very much going back to something they knew. So we went back to roads and we talked around how if you're driving on a motorway or a freeway that's many lanes, think of each car almost as a packet of data. And I explained how speeds were worked out as number of packets and all of that. And then we just said, look, the bigger the road, the wider the road, the more cars you can get on, the faster they can go. And then what happens is your current cable goes to a green cabinet. That's you coming off the motorway and going to a roundabout. What happens? Well, we slow down, don't we? It's like, yeah. And then when you come off the roundabout, you're onto an A road, which might only be single carriageway. You can't get as many cars. You have to go slower. We get that. And then you come off that into your little street and suddenly you're on a little one-way B road. Again, you've narrowed it and you've gone slower. And again, technically, you might not be 100% accurate. But to someone who's a layperson going, well, clearly you can't drive as fast as you can on a motorway with as many cars. You can't compare that to a B road or an A road, and you've got all these junctions that slow you down. I said, so imagine if I gave you a motorway that went all the way to your front door. And they're kind of like, oh, someone will obviously make a comment about being too noisy or something, but in general, they get it. And they're like, okay, so everyone's house now has a motorway directly to their door, so they can get there as fast as they can, basically. And that resonates with them because they understand driving, they understand the frustrations of being slow or stuck behind a tractor or going into rocky roads. And so my dog's just the car's gone past, so he has to warn the entire neighbourhood that there might be a car somewhere near our property.
Good alerts.
So, great having a dog. Get a dog, they said.
Yeah.
Your life
will change. Yeah,
your life will change for the better, apparently. But at least it warns me when a potential burglar is delivering a parcel next door, and then comes in all happy with himself. But yeah, so it was that putting it into language that they just understood just made so much sense. And obviously the project went ahead and it was built. But if I'd have gone technically into it and kind of explained how fibre works over how copper works and how the speed is actually determined by the software at each end of the cable, because actually it's just a piece of fibre at the end of the day. The light can travel down, it's the tool. That would have just confused them all. And there was no need to get into any of that. So you can kind of go, okay, I know what I'm saying to you is technically not 100% right. But if you as a business now understand it, that's fine with me because that's my job done. How I deliver that and how I do it, as far as you're concerned, could be magic. Could be voodoo, whatever. It could be anything. You don't need to know that. You just need to know that at the end of the day, your internet's going to be quicker. It's going to be faster. Downloads will work. You can do video recordings that won't stop and refresh and buffer and everything else. And I think, yeah, data, IT in general, all of that stuff, a huge part of the role. And from what I've seen over kind of the last maybe 10 years, 5-10 years, is the way that we communicate the value of what we do is changing. I think we're there in some cases with some of the digital work. I think IT, if we separate the two, still has some issues. And I think some of it, for me, is the fact that in a way, if you're into IT and you understand how it works and you like coding and you enjoy doing that kind of stuff, you have to be quite black and white. You can't code with grey areas. It's either it does this or it doesn't do this, it does this, it does that. And it's quite kind of streamlined where you obviously start at the top and work your way through it. If you then start throwing grey in and explaining things wrong, it can be quite difficult to comprehend that if your mind is designed to work in a very logical, structured way that a lot of guys are in kind of data and digital and that stuff. So having that flexibility to kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to say something that's technically wrong. I know it's wrong, but actually I need this person to understand it, can be quite difficult and quite challenging. And then sometimes you want to explain the complicated, you want to kind of show how clever you are and how smart you are and how difficult it is and all of that, but you're kind of hampering yourself at the same time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it has a massive impact on how a project is received within an organization from top down. And if you are not explaining things in a way that a business understands, if you're not talking their language or you're not using the wrong phrases or you're over jargonizing, that's you see, I've just completely made a word out there. If you're over jargonizing, but it just, people they switch off. How many times have you been into a customer or a meeting and they've thrown acronyms around and you've just gone, I have no idea what the hell does that mean? And okay, it's fine in that setting. Then once you know what that means, and if everyone knows what that means, then that's fine. But it's just the tendency to maybe rely too much on the technical side of things it can hamper and hinder a project and the communication of that project as well.
Yeah. And I've sat with my phone under the desk before, Googling acronyms that people have used in meetings. Funny enough, an old colleague of mine, when I first started working with him many years ago, he used to use me in meetings where if someone came in to do a sales pitch or talk about a new technology or something, he would talk to them and then he'd literally go, oh, can you explain that to Richard in simple terms? He's new to IT. And I knew it was coming, so it wasn't like I was offended by it. It was a technique we used. And he was basically they thought, oh, great, I'll explain it to this guy who knows nothing, aren't I wonderful? Not realizing that what he was doing was judging them on how well they could explain it without using acronyms and stuff, and to whether they actually understood what they were trying to sell. So, I had to play dumb in meetings for half an hour or so while they went through this. But it was so he could walk out of the meeting and go, they don't really know what they're talking about, or they do, and therefore we'll carry on the conversation with them. So it was quite useful in that way of forcing them into a corner to say, this guy does not understand any acronyms, anything you're talking about. You need to explain it to him in very, very simple layman's terms. And if they use one, I'd stop them and go, what's that? And I mean, I wouldn't say we did it every meeting, but it kind of, it helped me in a way. I was relatively new into IT, but I could hold conversations with people. But it helped me because I understood that communication issue and how important it actually was to be able to say to people, you don't need to worry about how it works. You need to understand what it's going to do for your business. And that's the bit I'm going to explain to you. And I'm going to make it as simple and as easy and as straightforward as I can do for you.
I think that's it's probably a subject for another time, but it's also when you're presenting data to stakeholders or consumers, it's being able to explain why something is shown on there and what it means to the context of what that. So it's definitely a subject for another time. But if a green arrow is pointing up, is that good or bad? Technically you think it was good, but if it's a cost, then it's bad. It's potentially bad and should be a red arrow. So there's all these types of things that, again, it comes back to communication and understanding. If you're reviewing, for example, a report and go, can you explain why something is on there, a visualization for something, what it represents and what decision that is supporting? And then that is a very good process for eliminating, data overload, which again is a communication problem. Because if you throw out a 15-page dashboard, it's like, well, who's going to look at 15 pages? It's like you need to whittle it down to the key areas that are most important, and that will change quite frequently. But it's definitely there's a whole other topic on things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you mentioned red and green arrows, the whole RAG status thing where people look at red and see bad, but red might just mean there's a few issues that could be major, but we're aware of them and we're controlling them. Red doesn't always mean we're on fire or we're going wrong. It might just mean this one's a more important project and there's a lot more risk involved around it, and therefore we've got more people with eyes on it. But again, your point a minute ago, even when I think when you're starting projects with people, getting them in the room and saying we're going to do a data project is harder to get them in the room than it is going, we're going to do an outcome project that means you're going to be better at what you do, sort of thing. So that whole, even when you're kicking off some of these projects and you're having the very first meetings, how you frame it for me is really important, because the work I'm doing with this one organization, as I said, everything is about problem solving and outcomes. And some of that is going to be that, we're going to use dashboards, I'm going to do some data work, I'm going to do some other stuff. But they don't need to know any of that at all. How we're getting the end result is down to us, the digital and the IT teams. But we want to invite you to a meeting where we're going to go through your problems and we're going to give you tools that are going to help you solve all of those problems. Gets people in the room a lot quicker than you just saying, we're going to do a data project and we're going to build a data lake and it's going to have some data visualizations and some business intelligence. Come along, please. Because that's exactly how suddenly people's diaries get full. I'm a bit busy.
Oh, I've got to
I'll send someone else to that one.
So polish my shoes. And,
yeah,
and I think some of that again comes down to something I spoke about on LinkedIn recently. Is like because most tools that you have now, so if you have operational tools or operational equipment applications, most of them will come with some kind of reporting and dashboarding. But when you're looking to produce insight across a couple of those areas, you have to take that information out, so it makes those dashboards redundant. Even using the word dashboard in trying to entice people into a project, I think he's lost steam, because if you've got a CRM, you've got an ERP, you've got a POS system, if you've got anything other system in your organization, finance system, email, you go, I've got a dashboard, I've got 15 dashboards already, why the hell do I need another one? It's a different, and even that I think is not enough of a good enough explanation. It's still too data centric to be able to entice, unless you're with an organization that is very greenfield, that doesn't really have, if you say a dashboard to consolidate all of this together, then that works, because people go, okay, great, I'm going to have one dashboard instead of 15. That works, but again, it's still very careful about even using words like that, because people would go, I've already got 15 emails come through with reports every morning, and I've already got 15 dashboards. I don't need another one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm the same in a way. I open Xero every day and I look at it and I've got a nice dashboard. And I think, I only send about 3 invoices a month. And I know where I'm at. Having a dashboard showing me where I'm at doesn't help me in any way, shape or form.
As it says, your VAT's overdue, and you're shit.
Yeah, that's the only bit I look at. Yeah, it is.
But that, all joking aside, that is informative, because you've logged onto a dashboard and you've been instantly, your attention has been drawn to something that needs action.
Yeah. But the other, let's say, 90 days of the quarter is fairly irrelevant. But again, someone on my Facebook post, I said I was trying to think of new ways of talking about my system, and I didn't want to use qualitative data. One of the business coaches in the group I'm in came back and said, well, how you've just described it to me, I think you've almost described what I would say is a nerve center of an organization, where a chief exec can basically give autonomy and power to all of his other heads of service, basically, to do what they need to do. But he still has an element of control that is keeping the business on the same path as their business plan. So he can immediately see where decisions have been taken or all of that. And you might say, okay, that's, some people might not like that, but actually his role, the CEO, let's say his or her role, sorry, as the CEO, is to drive the business forwards and to keep it on the route to Birmingham and to make sure it gets to Birmingham. What he's doing is allowing everyone else in the company to say, well, we might have to do a detour, we might go left, and we might have to get back onto the M62 later than we said we would, sort of thing. So, but that gives him I can't stop saying him, because I'm looking at you. I know, but I'm looking at you and you're a man, and I keep saying him. So forgive me for that. But it is that thing of, that's not about the data. That's about empowering an organization to change how it operates and how it runs. And it doesn't therefore need a daily meeting or a weekly meeting or these constant updates. You can just access that information and see what's happening. And we're doing the same at one of the councils, I said, where we're doing these dashboards and stuff. I've been very vocal when we've been talking about those projects, that the outcome of the project is that the organisation can work differently and it can change the way it runs its governance. And part of that is it needs to empower all of its heads of service or all of its team managers to be allowed to make decisions on the fly, or at least a lot quicker than they possibly might be today. And unless that happens, I can build as many dashboards as you want and give them to you, and nothing else will change. Though it's going almost back to your first point, in a year, those dashboards will all be redundant and in the bin because no one's looking at them. Because apart from it showing, here's some information, you haven't actually been able to do anything differently with any of it or change the way the business works or the way that it operates.
Yeah, and I think that also comes back, again, it's probably a topic for another one, is that it's something like the good old balanced scorecard and things like that, where you distribute accountability and information throughout the organisation to the people that are responsible for it. And again, that's often not considered when looking at a data-centric project, because how many people will look at a dashboard and it sits with them quite comfortably and they're looking at it going, I understand every single metric on there. I understand how my performance contributes to that, and I understand that it's very rare. It can be done, obviously, but that's where you understand the concept of what you do and how that ultimately drives the profit and the success and performance of the business, because you're measured accurately. You know how that interacts, and you're seeing your relevant metrics. So think about marketing or sales or finance or operations. You all have your set of information that you look at and you go, okay, I know how we're performing. I know what we need to focus on. But you also know how that connects into the profit end of year result, or end of week result even, or month result. Don't wait till the end of the year to look at it. And it's that awareness of, okay, I can see now. And it goes back to your point about how the CEO knows actions are being taken and knows the performance of these sub areas, but he doesn't need to go in and extract information and work it all out and then go, why has that not happened? You can see it.
Yeah,
the visibility is already there, and the communication is already there. People in department A know what department D, how they're performing. And they know, but they also know the connection between the two. So if our department does something, I know the impact of that, and I know how that flows around. Because ultimately, and I say this quite a lot, that the financial performance or outcomes of a business are driven more often than not by non-financial actions and operations. So don't solely look at, again, we're going off onto another subject here, but don't solely look at just financial metrics, or don't solely measure that on a regular basis, because there's another story potentially that you're not seeing.
I'm glad you said that, because I market myself as the story behind the numbers. Because for me, it's there is all.
And
of
I never
that.
knew that.
There you go. So that's one of our things, is that there is all this stuff happening in your business. And actually, part of me doing what I do is because I'm in lots of business groups, or I've been on business courses, and they're obsessed with numbers. And you understand why, because you have to have the money to be able to carry on. But it's numbers, it's appointments, it's leads, it's presentations, it's income, profit, margin, all of that stuff kind of shows the health of your business. But behind that, there's a whole world of stuff happening. And like you said, you end up sometimes where marketing don't know what operations are doing, or operations don't know what sales are doing, and it's disjointed. So being able to bring all that information together is as valuable as the financial metrics. But you might be able to look at them on a wall and go, oh, we had a really good quarter this month. Why? And everyone will sit there going, don't really know. Didn't we decide something in January? So I'm sure someone said something about something. It's kind of like, capture all of that, because that's really important. But it either exists in people's heads or in notebooks or in
you're
emails.
You're making connections between the information and relationships. And this is obviously from a non-technical perspective, you define data relationships, but you're making a relationship between activity A and outcome B that might not necessarily be in the same department. But so you are, silos as well. You're breaking down silos, you're breaking down that information to silos, but you're also then subsequently breaking down decision silos. So a decision is not made in isolation, because then you can see the impact of that and what that means. It just brings everyone to the same place, to the same table to we're having this discussion, we're making that decision. What's that impact? And we're all looking at, again, cliche central, but your single source of truth. You're looking at one thing. Everyone's looking at the same thing. They know what it means. They know what the context is. They know the story. They know how it impacts them. Then everyone decide, and they all buy into the same process.
Yeah, and I agree. And we should finish up shortly. But even where I've been, where there's quite a hierarchy, I describe it almost as a Christmas tree, where the person sitting at the top almost just wants that consolidated view of everything that's happening below. But your head of marketing, your head of sales, and your head of operations might want their dashboards to focus on their elements. So they're a breakdown of the chief exec. And then people who work for them will have their own elements of that.
Yeah, so, Snowflake. It's a Snowflake schema in that respect. Because
I'm sticking with Christmas tree.
You stick with Christmas tree. I'm being too jargon specific again, aren't I? But yeah, I totally agree. But the head of marketing has their own tip of the tree. The head of sales has their own tip of the tree. But that's a cascade down from the one above. But absolutely. You describe the balanced scorecard in its context.
And then if you can see, if someone's got that vision across everything, then you're in a good place, because you, like you say, you can immediately see, oh, they've started doing something differently. That's had an impact over here. And again, going back to my local gov kind of background, you see that all the time, where so many departments are siloed and don't talk to each other. And one of the big projects used to be looking at people who are on kind of benefits or claiming money from the council with their left hand, but on the right hand putting planning applications in or doing something else. But there was no way of being able to see across the organisation what was happening between the left and the right hand. And there were walls between all. So they've talked for years about single view of citizens and stuff, and bringing all that information together. And it's not difficult. Well, it's not difficult to describe. It's difficult to do. But it's just, again, something they've never had to really work with. So when you do see all that information and see that this person's doing two different things, what then? Because the teams still work in silos, so they still might be processing it. So you need that team that's sat in the middle that can see that Mr. Smith has got both in, because they're the ones that are going to go, no, you need to stop doing that and you need to call a halt on that. Because actually, as the team, you're just told, well, you need to process everything within 28 days, or you need to move it to stage 2 within 11 days. And they're just going through that process. So it changes the way you operate as an organization, I think. And for me, that is key to pretty much everything we're doing, because it's about doing things better or being better at what you do. And whether that leads to savings in local government or efficiencies or to growth in businesses, to more income to more sales, that surely is a good thing. And that's something a chief exec or a CFO is interested in. But don't just turn up and go, we're going to start talking about data. Because even you and I would probably start falling asleep at that point and going, yeah, I'm out.
It's about supporting smarter decision making.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a better outcome. Right, should we wrap it?
We should wrap it on that point then. That's the key for that one. It's about better decision making.
Always.
Right, pleasure to speak to you, Richard.
Always, likewise.
I shall speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
Cheers, bye.